winners lose more than losers do.
Hmm.
He's saying, look, on the path to being successful, you actually take way more losses than someone who just, loses, takes a couple of hard knocks and just stops playing the game. And so I think if you just realize that when you're building a business, the faster that you can rebound after a loss and just recognize that, like, hey, there's lessons learned here. It's a part of the process. Don't be startled. Don't be, taken aback. This is what winning actually looks like, is taking some losses along the way. The only thing that makes it permanently a loss is if we just hang it up.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Business of Learning podcast. My guest here today is Johnny Page, who is the CEO of SaaS Academy. Johnny, thanks for being here.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have this conversation. Tell everyone a little bit more about SaaS Academy, what you guys are all about, and who you helped.
Yeah, so SaaS Academy was originally founded by Dan Martell in 2016. It's a coaching program for B2B SaaS founders, all the way from SaaS curious, like, hey, I want to build a SaaS product and I'm not sure where to start. We help people find and start their SaaS idea, all the way through scaling to over 30 million in annual revenue. We've got 4 programs, have worked with thousands of founders, over 3,000 today. There's over 500 currently enrolled in one of our programs. And I've been doing this for over 7 or 8 years. I've been the CEO for the last year and a half, but before that, I was a client running a SaaS company. I joined in 2017, went on to sell that company in 2019, and meeting these founders in this community, the program changed the trajectory of my life, and now I get to call it my full-time gig.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I just want to give a very quick tangent about Dan Martell. One of my good friends actually, I believe Dan released a new book a couple months back. Is that correct? One of my good friends actually went to. Oh yeah, there it is.
That's it. Yeah.
He went to Dan's studio and he's a good friend of Dan's now, but they met through a connection. So it's always a small world when you think of it.
Yeah.
But tell me a little bit more about, you mentioned, hey, you were actually part of this entire thing first before actually joining the corporation. So what was that process like? What was the thing that you were looking for that now you are helping people achieve?
Yeah. So, I was looking for a predictable way to grow the business. I was already pretty good at studying great software companies and, doing research, looking at YouTube videos, and we call it like R&D, like rob and duplicate what was working for other companies. But I started coming across, in that process, I found, some of Dan's original YouTube videos and this, lead magnet at the time he called the Rocket Demo Builder. And it was basically a better way to run a demo. And I kind of went down this rabbit hole of realizing, Dan had started 5 companies, 3 of them were software companies, and had 3 successful exits, and was teaching other people how to build their company. And so I was like, well, I can continue down this path of figuring things out on my own. At the time, we had built to just over, 1.5 million in annual recurring revenue. And so I was like, I can keep on doing it that way, or I can try to learn from someone who has already done this before and accelerate the process. And so, I joined in 2017, and a part of SaaS Academy are these, we call them intensives. They're 2-day events. We do them 3 times a year. I live on the Central Coast of California. And so when I joined, just 2 months later, they were hosting an intensive in San Francisco. So it's a 3-hour drive north. And I remember driving up and super nervous because, like, until this point, like, I'm the only techie person that I know. So, but I'm about to go into a room full of people who are doing this all the time. So I kind of had this like imposter syndrome as I'm driving up there. And I remember walking in, I get my name badge, I've got assigned seating, and I go sit down. And it took about like 10 minutes for me to realize, like, I had found my tribe. I was in a room full of people who were excited about the same things I was excited about. Up until that point, if I was to try to tell my friends or even my wife, like, what I was working on, it's 2 minutes into the conversation, their eyes glaze over. Like, I'm in the deep end, right? And I found a room full of people who, like, for the next 10 hours over the course of, 2 days, I could share truly what was exciting me, what was, worrying me. And I left with a workbook full of frameworks. That intensive itself was all focused on sales. And so we went from, how do you, host your triage call or discovery call? How do we host a demo? How do we follow up? How do we handle objections? Really like piece by piece, the process for closing a software deal. And I went home and just started crushing. Our close rates went up. I was able to go hire additional salespeople. So I started to realize very quickly, asking the right questions and being in the right room was a cheat code to growing a lot faster. You don't have to go to the school of hard knocks if you don't want to.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, 2 years later, long story short, I went on to go sell that company and just, called up Dan and said, "Hey man, I want to stay in this community in some form or fashion."
Hmm.
And, I started coaching in the program. I went on to, come on full time and run the customer success team
Hmm.
and, transitioned to CEO a few months after that.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I always like to hear the story, which for your case, it sounds like it was a lot of a lone wolf process to now finding your pack. And you're like, here it is. Here's what I've been looking for all the time or this entire time. And as soon as that happens, is, as you said, right community, right questions. And then just from there, everything becomes so much simpler, I guess. I'm wondering what are your thoughts or what do you think are some of the biggest mistakes that um, founders make when trying to build their company that doesn't allow them to really scale and get to the level that they look for, just like you did in just over 2 years, being able to get all this information, act on it, get an exit at the end of it. What do you think doesn't allow most founders to do that?
I'll say like generally it's different for everyone, but broadly speaking, and I know I
Hmm.
certainly struggle with this myself, is that you feel like almost have a right to success by working hard. So you think like the harder that we grind, the harder we work, the more likely we are to be successful. And that there, unfortunately, there's no, awarded for working hard, right? You
Hmm.
either work hard on the right things or you work on the right things and the business grows, or you don't and the business doesn't grow. And, for years, I remember I would like put in tons of extra hours. Even at the time when I had young kids, like I'd be up super early in the morning working through, late at night. And, I think that what most founders get wrong is they double down on hard work and they don't spend enough time reflecting and
Hmm.
learning from others that have gone before.
Hmm.
For me, a massive accelerant, one of the things I constantly say to my team is like, "Hey, I want for us to make new mistakes."
Yeah.
Okay, if someone else has already like pioneered this area of the business, let's go ask the right question and be in the right room to pull that learning forward. I want us to make new mistakes.
Hmm.
There's already enough. There's already enough. No matter what, we're going to go find what the new frontier looks like. Let's just make sure that we don't have to go learn the same hard lessons that someone else has learned before.
Hmm.
So I think one of the universally, especially if it's your bootstrap startup, you are early stage, you're probably doubling down a little bit too much on the rise and grind attitude and
Hmm.
not enough on the let me build my network and learn how to, learn from others.
Interesting. It also sounds like you're very, very much fond of the failing forward idea of like, hey, yes, we have this great thing, but how much can we allocate to just trying new things out? And if they work, then we obviously have a high leverage on those activities as well, which I think is
Yeah.
a big proponent of businesses that people overlook. I'm not sure if you have the same opinion there.
Yeah. I mean, Dan has this quote I love. He says, winners lose more than losers do.
Hmm.
He's saying, look, on the path to being successful, you actually take way more losses than someone who just, loses, takes a couple of hard knocks and just stops playing the game. And so I think if you just
Hmm.
realize that when you're building a business, the faster that you can rebound after a loss and just recognize that, like, hey, there's lessons learned here. It's a part of the process. Don't be startled. Don't be, taken aback. This is what winning actually looks like, is taking some losses along the way. The only thing that
Hmm.
makes it permanently a loss is if we just hang it up. And so,
Hmm.
yeah, 100% just expect that it's a part of the game of entrepreneurship. And,
Yeah.
it's kind of like, it's even more startling. If you know you're jumping into cold water, you're not surprised when you're in there.
Yeah.
It's when someone's like, "Hey, jump in, the water is warm." It's a lot more startling. So, um,
And people
yeah,
get pissed at the end afterwards. It's like, yeah,
yeah,
you told me it wasn't. That's so funny. That's so
exactly,
funny. I
exactly.
really, really like that. And Johnny, when you're looking at the business internally, you're looking at SaaS Academy and the goals that you guys have for growth and the things that you want to achieve. What are some of the challenges that come up in being able to achieve those goals? Things that are obstacles in the way that the team is working through to be able to get to the point where you're like, huh, okay, achieved, moving on. What's the next step?
Yeah, so we're in the middle of this like multi-year process of transitioning from a personality-driven coaching company, like, to a methodology-driven coaching
Mm,
company. And so, for years the company was danmartell.com. until 2022. We shifted away, calling the company SaaSacademy.com. And that was a huge part of Dan, Matt, Marcel, and I all working together writing the book, is to say, hey, there's a methodology. Like, Dan has been out of the delivery of our product. He's been out of like coaching one-on-one any one of our clients for years, but our marketing and our go-to-market strategy didn't really reflect that. And
Mm.
so, this is a process of redesigning how we deliver our coaching, training other coaches to make sure it's a consistent customer experience across all of our coaches.
Mhm.
And then also making sure that our go-to-market reflects that, as to say, the example I give quite frequently is, nobody goes to EOS or reads Traction and then goes to EOS Worldwide and says, hey, Gino, can you help me install Traction into the business or
Yeah.
install EOS into my business? The methodology is what is so powerful. And that's true about SaaS Academy. We just haven't
Mhm.
been as public about it. And so writing the book and changing, how we, market the program, making it less personality dependent and more about the methodology, is kind of the shift that we're in the middle of.
Mhm.
We're years into it and probably still have a few more to go, but that's really the next piece. I want people coming to SaaS Academy because they say, hey, I read
Mhm.
the book. Can you help me implement that?
Mhm.
Not, hey, I saw Dan's Instagram, super inspiring. Like, can I join the program for closer proximity to him?
Mhm. Interesting, and I'm wondering your thoughts on, actually, I'll preframe with this. It sounds like a lot of people obviously come from just knowing Dan, who he is, obviously the history that has built, so that's a major traffic source for the business. But I'm wondering if you consider it B2C or B2B, just because of the nature. Hey, you're helping businesses, but a lot of times that they're actually not businesses yet, or even if they are, you're helping the leader of that business instead of the entire organization. So yeah, we'd love to hear how that usually goes
Yeah,
down.
strictly B2B. It wasn't until, I mean, we just launched our newest program, is called Idea to Launch, because for years all we focus on in our sales and marketing efforts is acquiring founders that do more than 1 million in annual revenue. All of our messaging, all the focus is around that founder. Now, when you market to those founders, you get the down market customers, the ones that aren't at 1 million or don't even have a SaaS product. We call them SaaS curious.
Mhm.
And so, if 3 years ago we launched a program called Growth Accelerator that helped people less than 1 million in annual revenue, and then I've just recently launched Ideas to Launch with so many no code, low code, AI supported solutions out there. It really lowers the bar for people
Mhm.
getting into SaaS. So we have a lot of agencies that come to us and say, hey, we love to like either productize our or I you have a tech enabled service or have a software solution to do what we do. Coaches coming, and so there's a massive market now of people that historically would have, the barrier to entry into SaaS was way too high for them to actually build a SaaS product. Now it's
Mhm.
like, I mean, it's pennies, and it will be almost like, zero cost to go launch a SaaS product. And so Idea to Launch is designed to help those people, but all still B2B focused. Like,
Mm.
we're exclusively like B2B software founders, which can be a really tight niche, but you find there's actually like a ton of segments even within that. So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, exclusively B2B.
It's interesting, and does that usually, fit into the parameter of, I guess, most B2B businesses where it is a lot of word of mouth, a lot of referrals, a lot of organic, or do you guys also, do a lot on the, I guess, the paid acquisition or digital marketing side of things to be able to bring a lot more customers as well?
Yeah, I mean, at a company our scale, like there's a several contributing
Of
factors.
course.
Still primarily paid. We have two main drivers. Well, yeah, it's primarily paid across Google, Facebook,
Sure.
Instagram, and LinkedIn.
Awesome, good stuff. And I have two final questions here for you, and I actually think they would fit. One of them will fit really well, but we'll start with one question, Johnny, that I've been asking everybody. And you might have been asked this question before by maybe a mentor or a leader. And I think it just allows people just like take the cap off, take the roof off, and just like really think. But let's just say you had a magic wand and you could just wave this amazing wand and just solve one thing, one obstacle, one challenge, whatever it might be in the business that would allow you to reach all the growth goals that you guys are looking for much easier. What's that one thing you'd like to solve?
I mean, right now it's like like lead gen continues to be, we're sifting through specifically for founders doing more than 1 million, because there are so many new and early stage founders, we have to sift through, our ratios previously were like 60-40. We'd have, 60% unqualified or too early and 40% qualified. That
Mhm.
number can on a given month can be as low as like 15% actually qualified, primarily because of the volume of new companies coming in. So
Yeah.
right now we're working through what is essentially the dog whistle effect. Like, what lead magnet or resources can we put out into the market that exclusively attract later stage? But
Mm.
I'm not convinced that that ends up being a paid media strategy. It probably ends up being a cold outreach strategy, just
Mm.
going outbound. And so we've got a couple of different, tests and bets
Mhm.
deployed right now on that. But yeah, I'd love a pipeline full of founders that
Yeah.
are doing exclusively between 1 and 30 million in annual revenue.
Awesome. That's cool. I really I just like the way that you framed your thinking there. So thank you for answering that. That's awesome. And the final question that I have here for you, Johnny, I know this is a bit of a short one here, but it's actually, I think, a very, very fitting question, given the story that you told me. And it's actually not a question from me. It's a question from our last guest. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Stephen Bartlett, but he has a section where he does this. And I was like, very nice. And I humbly, humbly borrowed that from his podcast. So are you ready for the question?
Yep.
Here's the question. What is one thing you feel very strongly about and believe in, but most people around you do not?
Hmm. Oh man, I don't know if I have one that most people do not. I seem to. I mean,
Mm.
I'm in a pretty curated community.
Yeah,
um,
maybe in the lone wolf stance before, then like a
yeah, I
couple of
mean,
months come
I
through, but
think
now,
that's it. Like,
yeah.
I would say, I mean, I have some like pretty contrarian views about how I have 3 young kids, and I think that the way that we educate our kids in our education system right now is probably not setting them up for success in the world that is coming.
Hmm.
And so I have some like contrarian views around how my kids spend my time. Like, I gave my daughter the option recently. I took her to go begin tutoring because her grades were just, not super low, but not where I'd love for them to be.
Hmm.
And I'm sitting there in the first tutoring session. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, this is not, I'm helping her like score better on a test, but like
Mm.
my daughter is incredibly smart. She's incredibly resourceful. So I gave her the option on the drive home. I said, hey, Abby, we can keep on going to tutoring, or you can spend 5 hours a week starting your own business, and I'll help you
Mm.
start your own business. I'll teach you the whole, the process. All you have to do is 5 hours a week. And she is like lit up to go after that. And we're early in the process, but like, the it's going to be much easier for me to get her thinking about math and pricing and other people's wants, needs, empathy, all of that through
Hmm.
the vehicle of business than it would be through traditional
Yeah.
schooling. And so
I like
yeah,
that.
I don't know, that's early in the process, but that's
No, I
where
really like that. I really
I'm
like
going.
that. I think it's so important as well because just as you highlighted, it just there's such a real transfer into the real world. It's like, hey, here are all these things that you can learn and you will learn, and they're very helpful for school and I guess the subjects. But here's how they actually apply, and here's how you're going to be working through and psychologically thinking through all these things. Right? I think it's really awesome. So very high commandments for me there, Johnny. So thank you so much, man. I know this has been a little bit more of a shorter episode, but thank you for the conversation. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your story. Where can people go if they want to learn a little bit about you, or maybe a little bit more about SaaS Academy, maybe the book?
Yeah, SaaSacademy.com for SaaS Academy, softwarebook.com if you want to get a copy of Software as a Science. I'll actually give it to you for free if you just pay for shipping. Tons of resources on the back end of that. So if you're SaaS curious, you want to get to know what SaaS Academy is all about, the book is really a great place to start. Ton of value in there. And then you can search on or Johnny Page on LinkedIn is probably the best spot. I post daily over there. So yeah, thanks for having me on, man.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Johnny. I really appreciate you.